The Skydweller collection from Rolex is making waves in the world of luxury watches, and you will see why it deserves the spotlight. We're going to take a closer look at the 2023 Skydweller collection by Rolex, and let me tell you, it's something truly special. We'll explore what makes these watches stand out and why they're considered the best Rolex has to offer this year. Stick around till the end, because missing out on this Rolex collection is like passing up a chance to own a piece of watch history. But first, if you want a watch that can track a second time zone, you've got some options. If you like the Submariner look but also want that second time zone feature, check out the GMT. It's like a Submariner with a cool dual personality bezel, and it even has names inspired by drinks or superheroes. Now, if you're into a fancier style that's kinda like a date just on steroids, then the Skydweller is your go-to. What's cool about the Skydweller is that you can get it in different materials and bracelet styles to match your taste. Rolex offers it in fancy precious metals with matching bracelets, or you can go for a more casual look with an Oyster Flex bracelet. You can even get it in a blend of two-tone with steel or just plain steel. And depending on your style, the two-tone and steel versions offer different bracelet choices. If you're feeling sporty, go for the Oyster bracelet. Let's dive into this unique taste journey and how it will lead you to consider the Skydweller as a must-have watch in your collection. So, I'll share with you my favorite Skydweller models up close and share my experience as a watch enthusiast in Rolex watches. First off, the Rolex that initially caught my eye was the Daytona. Back in the 80s, as a teenager, I remember seeing it in a store window. But the first Rolex I truly fell in love with and eventually owned was the Milgauss in Z Blue. What drew me to it were the playful and quirky elements, the green sapphire crystal case, the charming Z Blue dial, and that funky orange lightning bolt second hand. It had character, a sense of playfulness, and a burst of colors. I appreciated that it wasn't too serious or formal. The dial looked stunning in the light, and the watch had a substantial presence on my wrist. Wearing it always brings me joy, and if you haven't tried on the Milgauss in Z Blue, I highly recommend it. Next in my Rolex journey is the Datejust. I was particularly attracted to watches with natural stone dials, so I opted for a two-tone version with a mother-of-pearl dial. While this 41mm Datejust might be seen as less common for men and perhaps leans towards a more feminine style, I'm completely comfortable with that choice. I wanted something that contrasted with the Milgauss, and I adore the classic, elegant, and vintage vibes it exudes. It's a completely different expression that resonates with me and has its special place in time. Just like the Milgauss, I find myself wearing this watch frequently. In fact, I've been wearing it all week. Lastly, my third Rolex is a Daytona, and once again, I went for the two-tone option. I was fortunate to acquire all three of these watches at retail prices. I chose the amber champagne dial for my Daytona. The two-tone design adds a unique touch to this classic watch in my eyes. Even though this dial choice might not be the most popular, I believe it played a role in helping me secure it at retail. I truly love it. It's like a burst of sunshine on my wrist. Now, let's talk about the Skydweller. It wasn't the first Rolex that caught my attention. I knew about it, but initially, it struck me as a bit flashy. The dial didn't resonate with me, at least not when I looked at photos. The Skydweller made its debut in 2012, marking Rolex's first new model in 2 decades. Initially, it was only available in precious metals, with steel and two-tone options coming in 2017. However, there are 3 recent developments that shifted my perspective and convinced me that owning a Skydweller was a must for me. These points might resonate with you too. First, when I initially thought about my next watch, I had my eye on a GMT. I admired their design, especially the root beer version, which I was on the waiting list for. In my opinion, the two-tone option worked better than the full rose gold, which can be a bit overwhelming. I thought it might look fantastic with a Jubilee bracelet. Additionally, I was captivated by the new yellow gold black and gray bezel introduced at Watches and Wonders. I saw it in person, and it's truly stunning. However, my wrist size is just slightly over 7 inches, which is a bit above average. Watches in the 40 to 42mm range feel just right for me. The GMT, due to the width of its bezel, actually makes the dial appear smaller, almost like a 36mm watch. Secondly, I appreciate some of the dial colors available for the Datejust and Day-Date models. One that caught my eye and continues to do so is the gorgeous and often overlooked Eisenkiesel dial on the Ever Rose Gold Day-Date. This, along with the Platinum Day-Date, remains my favorite choice. I'm also fond of the blue and mint green dials on the Datejust. However, I have a limited budget, and I aim for each watch in my collection to have its own distinct character. While the Day-Date is undoubtedly elegant, it struck me as somewhat similar to the Datejust I already own. I'm aiming for a small, carefully curated collection of watches, keeping the count in the single digits, so I can enjoy each piece regularly. What I want to avoid is having watches that are too similar and compete in the same style category. Lastly, I've been thinking about the idea of having one watch entirely made of precious metal. Currently, I own 3 two-tone watches, including my Omega Seamaster 300. Most fully precious metal watches, in my view, tend to look a bit too flashy and gaudy for my personal taste. I want to emphasize that this isn't a criticism of those who own them. It's just that I don't see myself comfortably wearing them in most settings, except maybe at home. After trying on some beautiful watches, including the Daytona, I've come to fully believe that, for fully precious metal watches, the Jubilee bracelet works better than an oyster bracelet. This is why I find the new GMT in yellow gold with a black and gray bezel so stunning. The Jubilee bracelet adds an extra touch of elegance. But along this spectrum of bracelet styles, I find that the Oyster Flex bracelet tones it down just enough for my comfort. So, I recently decided to swap out all 3 of my remaining Rolex allocations and replace them with a single one for a Skydweller. The Skydweller, to me, is like a supersized Datejust with a GMT's time zone functionality, but with a larger dial, more heft, and a practical and easy-to-use annual calendar feature. It combines the 2 most useful complications for me, knowing which months have 30 or 31 days, so I only need to adjust the date once a year on March 1st, and having the ability to track time in 2 time zones simultaneously. Rolex designed this watch brilliantly with its 9002 movement, offering a 72-hour power reserve and a unique ring command system. You can turn the bezel up to 3 times to switch modes, and then use the crown to adjust the month, date, local time, and reference time. A red triangle on the dial indicates the month number and reference time, while having the reference time on a separate subdial makes it quick and easy to read and adds to the watch's elegant look, especially with a fluted bezel. The Skydweller comes in various case materials and dial options, and it's the only Rolex available with an Oyster, Jubilee, or Oyster Flex bracelet. I personally adore the Skydweller in steel with a blue dial, and the new steel version with a green dial is also captivating. I think either of these with a Jubilee bracelet is a beautiful choice. The new Ever Rose Gold version with a teal dial is stunning, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a fan of fully precious metal watches on an Oyster bracelet. I'm hopeful that Rolex will offer an Oyster Flex option with this color, which I believe would be exceptional. But for now, the one that resonates with me the most is the Skydweller with a chocolate dial in Everest Gold, paired with the Oyster Flex bracelet. It brings out the warm tones I've been drawn to, reminiscent of the root beer model. So what do you think of the Skydweller? Drop your comments below. And for more updates regarding fancy watches, do subscribe to Luxury Focus. Thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you at the next one.